So if you want to find some of the most indestructible, just hazardous chemicals on the planet, you don't actually need to visit a toxic waste dump.
No, you really don't. You just need to look at, like, the lather in your morning shower.
Exactly. I mean, think about what you massaged into your scalp today or, the synthetic extensions you might be wearing right now.
Right, because we do this daily, right?
Yeah.
Just trying to look presentable.
Yeah, totally unaware that this whole quest for perfect hair is actually doubling as this slow drip exposure to industrial compounds that literally refuse to break down.
It's basically a completely invisible exchange taking place right on our skin.
Yeah, it really is. And, for today's deep dive, the sources we're analyzing map out how we routinely trade long-term biological health and environmental health for these incredibly transient conveniences.
Like a shampoo that foams up super quickly.
Right. Or synthetic hair fibers that hold a curl in high humidity. And what makes this stack of sources so fascinating is this collision of two completely different worlds, right?
Definitely. I mean, on one hand, we have data from the Environmental Working Group's cosmetic safety surveys and all these chemical databases.
Which paint a pretty stark picture of the modern personal care industry, to say the least.
Absolutely. But then we're cross-referencing that with medical geology reviews on ancient Earth-derived volcanic clay.
Right. So we're looking at this fundamental clash between modern synthetic persistence, so chemicals that never go away, and an ancient paradigm of natural remediation.
And the stakes of that clash go way beyond, like, getting a rash from a bad hair product.
Way beyond.
We're talking about the integrity of the human endocrine system and the safety of the entire global water cycle. So to really grasp the solution, we have to understand the exposure first.
Yeah, let's start right at the surface.
Yeah.
Literally on the human scalp.
Right.
So the EWG survey data points out that about a third of people use shampoo daily, and another 30% use it weekly.
Which is a huge amount of exposure.
It is. When you spread that over decades, you're looking at a massive lifetime accumulation. And the absolute worst offender hiding in those bottles is just 2 words on the back label.
Undisclosed fragrance.
Undisclosed fragrance. Just boom, right there.
Yeah, because legally, fragrance or parfum, it isn't treated as a single ingredient. It functions as this massive proprietary loophole.
A loophole for what, exactly?
Well, when you see that word, you could be looking at a mystery cocktail of up to 100 different chemicals, all drawn from an industry roster of about 3,500.
Wow. Up to 100 chemicals just hidden under one word.
Exactly. And the reason this matters so much for shampoo is the application site. The scalp is incredibly vascular.
Meaning lots of blood vessels.
Right. It has this huge network of blood vessels super close to the surface, making it highly permeable.
So wait, whatever you scrub into it, especially with warm water opening the pores, it has a direct pathway into your system.
It does. It goes right in.
Okay, so what exactly is swimming in that proprietary cocktail? Because the databases highlight a few specific culprits that are, frankly, genuinely unsettling.
Yeah, like diethyl phthalate, for instance.
Right, which is used as a gelling agent to make the scent stick to your hair longer, but chemically, it's a known hormone disruptor.
Yeah, and then you have lily aldehyde, also known as lilial.
Which gives products that fresh, clean lily scent.
Exactly, but it's been explicitly banned in Europe and soon in California too because of severe risks to fertility and fetal development.
Just to make our hair smell like lilies. It's crazy. And then there's kokumidea, which is added purely to create that rich, satisfying lather that we've all been trained to expect.
Despite the fact that it's been flagged for cancer risks.
Right. Oh, and add parabens to the mix. Preservatives used to extend shelf life, but they unfortunately mimic estrogen in the human body.
Yeah, it's a potent mix. But the chemical exposure doesn't stop with what comes out of a bottle, does it?
No, it really doesn't. Because the sources go deep into the synthetic hair extension market. And I think a lot of people assume it's just harmless plastic,
And most people do, yeah.
But the most widely used fiber is Kanekalon, which was developed back in the 1950s. It's a monocrylic copolymer made of 60% acrylonitrile and 40% vinyl chloride.
And vinyl chloride is a known potent carcinogen.
Yes, and it's added specifically to impart flame retardant properties to this synthetic hair.
And then you have other synthetic fibers, right? Like Futura.
Exactly, which is a polyester designed to withstand high heat from curling irons.
And the whole manufacturing process for these synthetic fibers and even heavy processing of human hair extensions to, like, strip and re-dye them, it involves intense chemical treatments.
Intense treatments.
Yeah.
Recent surveys actually show that 9 in 10 hair extensions sold in the U.S. contain toxic residues, including lead and phthalates.
9 in 10. That is staggering.
It is. But, okay, wait a minute. This is where I have to, play the skeptic for a second.
Go for it.
If my scalp is so permeable and I'm wearing hair extensions that contain lead or vinyl chloride, wouldn't I be visibly sick? Are these trace amounts actually moving the needle on a person's health? Or is this just, I don't know, a bit of chemical fear-mongering?
Well, I mean, a synthetic braid isn't dissolving directly onto someone's head.
Right.
But it's a vital question. You aren't getting acute lead poisoning overnight from a set of braids. But we have to remember, these aren't inert materials just sitting on a mannequin.
What do you mean?
Think about the mechanical reality of wearing synthetic hair. You have friction from sleeping, heat from styling tools, and, daily sweat, which contains salts and acids.
Oh, I see. So that combination slowly breaks down the polymers over weeks or months.
Exactly. The toxic residues aren't locked away permanently. They leach out onto a warm, highly vascular scalp.
Wow.
So it's the chronic, low-dose cumulative exposure that is the real issue here. It acts like a slow-release chemical patch.
A slow-release patch. That is terrifying. So people are dealing with contact dermatitis, chronic itching, inflammation, and even potentially severe hair loss.
Right, like traction alopecia.
Yeah, which the sources note can be heavily exacerbated by this chemical damage, just weakening the scalp barrier.
It weakens the very skin trying to hold on to the hair.
But, if the data shows these chemicals leach toxins and disrupt hormones, why is the industry still so reliant on them?
Well, honestly, because of their sheer industrial utility.
Yeah.
From a manufacturing standpoint, these chemicals are miraculous.
Miraculous how?
Well, phthalates provide incredible flexibility, right?
Yeah.
And they ensure a product can just sit in a warehouse for 5 years without degrading at all.
Right, it's all about the bottom line.
Exactly. The manufacturers are optimizing for product performance, stability, and profit margins, which, by the way, sit around 16% for these specific chemicals.
So human health is basically a secondary consideration.
If it's considered at all, it really highlights a massive systemic regulatory failure.
Where the burden of managing this chemical load is placed entirely on the end consumer.
Completely on us, yeah.
Okay, so we wash our hair, rinse the lather down the drain, and maybe we feel a little itchy. But the story doesn't end in the shower basin, does it?
Not even close.
Because the exact traits that make these synthetic chemicals so useful for companies, their extreme stability and resistance to breaking down well, they create a nightmare scenario once they enter the environment.
Yeah, this is where we have to talk about PFAS.
Right, the infamous forever chemicals.
To really understand the forever part of that name, we have to look closely at the chemistry itself. PFAS, or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are defined by the carbon-fluorine bond.
And from what I understand in the realm of organic chemistry, that carbon-fluorine bond is one of the strongest links found anywhere in nature.
It really is. The atoms share electrons so tightly that it requires just an immense amount of energy to wedge them apart.
Which makes PFAS incredibly resistant to heat, water, and grease.
Exactly. It's the whole reason they were used to invent Teflon back in the 1930s, and why they're currently relied upon for waterproof makeup, hairsprays, and, stain-resistant coatings.
But nature didn't design the carbon-fluorine bond, which means nature has absolutely no biological mechanism to break it down.
Right. Bacteria can't eat it. Sunlight doesn't degrade it.
So it just built up.
Yeah.
And the sources highlighted a 2022 study that is honestly genuinely hard to wrap your head around.
Your rainwater study.
Yes. It found that the levels of PFAS in global rainwater now vastly exceed EPA's lifetime health advisories.
They stated we have officially crossed a planetary boundary for chemical pollution.
Meaning it is literally unsafe to drink rainwater anywhere on Earth. Anywhere.
And we really have to look at the bioaccumulation, too, because it doesn't simply dilute into harmless trace amounts when it hits the ocean.
Right, it doesn't just wash away.
No. Research out of Stockholm University tracked how PFAS actually transfers from the ocean water back into the air through sea spray.
Wait, sea spray?
Yeah, from there, it's carried into the atmosphere, falls back down as rain, and accumulates in the soil.
So it just cycles.
Exactly. It moves stubbornly up the trophic levels, from contaminated water into algae, into small fish, into the seabirds that eat the fish.
And ultimately, it's even been found accumulating in human breast milk.
It has. It's everywhere.
We hear the term forever chemicals a lot, but putting a timeline on it makes it so visceral. The half-life of some of these PFAS chemicals inside the human body is over 8 years.
Over 8 years, just sitting there.
It's like having that one house guest who comes over for dinner, refuses to leave for almost a decade, and spends the entire time slowly dismantling your home's plumbing and wiring.
That is a perfect analogy. You can't break the chemical down. Your body just slowly attempts to clear it out through urine while you're constantly taking more in through your water and food.
And the physiological toll of that constant presence is just staggering, isn't it?
It is. Because these chemicals interfere with endocrine and cellular function, we are seeing elevated risks across the board.
For what kinds of things?
Ulcerative colitis, thyroid disease, delayed puberty, and various cancers.
And there was that recent, highly concerning report from the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, right?
Yes, they linked high PFAS exposure to a 40% decrease in female fertility.
A 40% drop in fertility connected to chemical exposure. I mean, that isn't just a health concern. That is a societal crisis.
Absolutely. And the economic reality of this pollution is completely lopsided.
Totally. The global market for manufacturing PFAS is worth about $28 billion.
Which is a lot of money for the manufacturers.
Huge. But the estimated societal costs, treating the resulting diseases, the massive infrastructure needed to filter municipal water, the environmental remediation, it's estimated at up to $62 billion in the U.S. alone.
And in Europe, they project the cleanup cost over the next 20 years will exceed 1.6 trillion pounds.
Trillion, with a T. It is the ultimate externalization of costs.
It really is. The industry reaps the billions in annual profits, while society and the ecosystem bear the near-permanent consequences.
Well, 3M did recently agree to a $10.3 billion settlement for municipal water contamination in the U.S.
True, but while that's historic, it's a fraction of the actual global damage. I mean, we've unleashed indestructible molecules into the biosphere for entirely transient benefits.
Like making a mascara waterproof or, keeping a synthetic braid looking shiny for a few extra weeks.
Exactly. It's a steep price for convenience.
So if soap and water just spread these forever chemicals and heavy metals around, what actually gets rid of them? Like, how do we strip lead or PFAS off our bodies?
This is where the deep dive gets incredibly hopeful, actually.
Thank goodness, because I needed some hope.
Right. The sources pivot to a totally different paradigm of personal care. We move away from synthetic chemistry entirely and look at Earth-derived volcanic clay.
Okay, so specifically, the research focuses on bentonite, right? Also known as montmorillonite or calcium bentonite powder.
Yes. It's this highly porous, mud-like substance derived from the weathering of ancient volcanic ash.
And unlike modern synthetic chemicals, which have really been around for less than a century, this material has a massive, millennia-long cultural history.
The cultural footprint is fascinating.
Yeah. In Ghana, it's traditionally known as Ilo or Heil. In the Congo, it's called Mabele. It's been a cornerstone in Ayurveda and was utilized extensively in ancient Egypt.
But what's really compelling is that this isn't just ancient folklore or, anecdotal wellness trends.
Right. There is hard, measurable electrochemistry driving why it actually works. It basically operates like molecular Velcro.
That's a great way to put it. The underlying mechanism is what chemists call a high accretion exchange capacity, or CEC.
Okay, so how does that work in practice?
Well, when bentonite clay is activated with a liquid, usually just water, it's layered, crystalline molecular structure physically swells and expands.
Got it.
And because the clay carries a strong inherent negative ionic charge, it acts as an intense magnet for anything carrying a positive ionic charge.
And what happens to carry a positive charge? Well, almost everything we've just been worrying about for the last 10 minutes.
Exactly. Toxins. Heavy metals, like the lead leaching from hair extensions.
Even excess sebum and oxidized oils on the scalp, right?
Yes. People mix equal parts of this clay powder with warm water and often apple cider vinegar to match the natural acidity of human hair, creating this thick mask.
And it essentially functions as a shampoo and a conditioner simultaneously.
It does. It detoxifies the scalp without stripping the natural moisture barrier. It restores shine and naturally defines curl patterns.
Which seems incredibly crucial for people wearing protective styles like locks, braids, or weaves.
It is deeply crucial. Traditional clarifying shampoos rely on harsh synthetic surfactants to scrub away buildup, right?
Yeah, and that often physically loosens the hairstyle or deeply strips the natural hair of its oils.
Exactly. But targeted clay detox systems like Toxitris utilize a specific blend of natural clays and activated charcoal.
Oh, I saw that. They're engineered to pull those exact toxins, the lead, the phthalates, the volatile organic compounds, directly out of both the synthetic hair fibers and the scalp,
Without mechanically ruining the protective stack.
which is amazing. And there's another ritual-grade product, Mother Clay, that does similar deep cleaning work using the exact same electrochemical principles.
It's all based on that same science.
But I have to admit, I read about the high CEC and the negative ions, and part of me still wants to push back a little.
Okay, I hear you. What's the hesitation?
Well, we just spent all this time talking about PFAS being literally indestructible and heavy metals being stubborn enough to cause long-term illness.
Right.
Does rubbing wet volcanic ash on your head actually pull industrial lead out of your scalp? I mean, it almost sounds too simple to combat modern industrial chemistry.
It does sound deceptively simple, I'll give you that. But you cannot cheat the strict rules of electrochemistry.
Fair enough.
Think about it. When you use a synthetic shampoo, it works by creating suds that make the hair slippery, basically hoping the dirt simply slides off.
Right, it's just surface level.
But the clay operates entirely differently. It chemically binds to the toxins at a molecular level.
Because opposites attract.
Precisely. Because the heavy metals have a positive charge, they are irresistibly drawn to the negative charge of the clay. The ions literally swap places.
Wow.
And once that electrochemical bond is formed, the heavy metal is trapped deep within the expanded, porous structure of the clay itself.
So when you rinse the clay out with water and it goes down the drain, the trapped toxins are securely locked inside it.
Yes, they are sequestered.
So it's not just washing the toxins away, it's capturing them and escorting them off your body. That is brilliant.
It really is elegant, isn't it?
And what's amazing is that the sources don't just keep this focused on personal care.
Yeah.
Just as we zoomed out from the scalp to the environment with the synthetic chemicals.
We have to do the exact same thing with the clay.
Right. If this volcanic ash is powerful enough to detoxify heavy metals from a human scalp, what is it capable of doing on a planetary scale?
Well, the macro applications are just as effective as the micro. If we look at internal medical uses first, there's a widely documented historical practice called geophagy.
Which is the intentional consumption of earth or clay, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, the sources specifically detailed how pregnant women in Ghana often crave and consume baked aloe clay to settle their stomachs and protect against toxins.
And clinically, this makes perfect sense. Researchers like Dr. Linda Williams, who's a prominent geochemist, refer to these specific clays as little chemical drugstores.
That's a great phrase.
Isn't it? In agricultural and veterinary science, calcium bentonite is deployed routinely to combat aflatoxin.
Aflatoxins, those are the highly dangerous fungal toxins that frequently contaminate staple crops like corn and peanuts, right?
Yes. And when livestock or even humans consume small, controlled amounts of the clay, it binds directly to the aflatoxins in the gastrointestinal tract.
Safely sequestering them and passing them out of the body before they can even be absorbed into the bloodstream.
Precisely. It neutralizes the threat internally.
That just blows my mind. The Earth actually provides the exact compound needed to safely pass fungal toxins through our digestive system.
It's incredible. And then you scale it up even further to environmental remediation.
Right, because we've spent a century devastating the environment with massive oil spills, heavy metal runoff from factories, and blanketed the earth in PFAS.
And what is the major industrial solution to clean that up? Calcium bentonite.
Really?
Absolutely. It is deployed on a massive scale to absorb hydrocarbons during chemical spills. Municipal wastewater treatment plants use it to pull heavy metals out of the water supply before it even reaches our taps.
Wow, so it's already working behind the scenes.
Yeah. There are even highly effective filtration methods utilized in developing nations where bentonite is combined with crushed Moringa oleifera seeds.
I read about that. The combination rapidly flocculates or clumps together bacteria and parasites, safely removing them from drinking water.
Yes. But the most critical modern application brings us right back to the PFAS problem.
Right, because earlier we established that the carbon-fluorine bond is practically unbreakable. So how does clay help with a forever chemical?
Well, destroying PFAS in water treatment facilities requires extreme, super energy-intensive measures. The current gold standard is supercritical water oxidation.
Which involves heating water to over 374 degrees Celsius while placing it under massive pressure, right?
Exactly. The state of water is so volatile, it can finally snap those carbon-fluorine bonds apart, But here is the catch.
There's always a catch.
Before you can destroy the PFAS, you have to capture it out of millions of gallons of flowing water.
Oh, right. You can't just boil the whole river.
Exactly. So natural sorbents, specifically activated carbon and high CEC clays like bentonite, are the absolute essential first line of defense.
They're the nets.
Yes, they are the nets used to filter and trap these forever chemicals out of the municipal water supply so they can be isolated and then destroyed.
I mean, think about the symmetry of that for a second. We dig up fossil fuels, synthesize them in labs into these nightmare chemicals, coat our hair and our frying pans in them for a little bit of convenience.
And eventually poison our own rainwater.
Exactly. And the Earth just sits there, offering up ancient volcanic ash to mop up our mess. It's almost poetic that the only way we can catch our worst chemical mistakes is by using ancient dirt.
It perfectly illustrates two competing models of existence, I think.
How so?
Well, the synthetic chemical industry operates on a linear extractive model. We create novel molecules that biology has never encountered, we utilize them for a fleeting moment, and we discard them into an environment that fundamentally cannot digest them.
Right. It's a dead end.
But volcanic clay represents a cyclical, natural model. It is an ancient material that interacts with our biology and our ecology using fundamental electrochemical rules.
It doesn't force a new chemical reaction. It restores balance by binding to the disruption.
Beautifully said. That's exactly it.
So, what does this all mean for you, listening right now? The sources we've explored today really lay out a remarkably stark choice hidden in our daily routines.
They really do.
On one hand, you have the convenience of instant lather and artificial lingering scents, but they are heavily laden with persistent synthetic chemicals that accumulate in your bloodstream and the environment.
And on the other hand, you have the ancient, scientifically proven power of volcanic clay that works with your body's chemistry to actively pull those toxins out.
Yeah. Embracing that alternative, though, requires a profound shift in perspective.
It does, because every time you step into the shower or, install a new set of extensions, you aren't just making a superficial cosmetic choice about how your hair looks.
No, you are making a definitive physical choice about what enters your vascular system and ultimately what washes down the drain to enter the global water cycle.
Because if our skin absorbs the chemicals we wear and our rain contains the chemicals we manufacture, then the boundary between our bodies and the environment is entirely an illusion.
There is no magical outside where we can throw things away. It all cycles back.
It always cycles back.
So the next time you step into the shower to wash your hair, ask yourself,
Yeah.
when you clean yourself, are you actually cleaning the earth or are you just polluting it?